let's take a few minutes. I mean, this is going to be a short one, but I'm going to try to run through this chapter 5 quickly for you. It's not as crucial as the previous chapter on critical thinking, but it's still pretty important. Some people are kind of iffy on this material. I'll be honest with you, because the name of the chapter is Understanding Your Audience, and we all agree that it's important to understand these people you're speaking to. But to what degree you actually can know and predict your audience is kind of a questionable matter, okay? And so this chapter builds on the idea is that when we speak to an audience, any audience, there are certain identities, there's certain social identities that are in play. And if you can identify who are the people that you're speaking to, kind of in a general way, you know, just scan the crowd and say the majority of the people are, and then put them in a category. See, it's very unfair to categorize people, right? You can't just look at people and say, okay, well, these people all look like college students. Well, maybe they're not, but they all look like it. So I'm just going to say they're college students. And it's not always fair. Sometimes you look at somebody and you think, oh, they're this or they're that. And it's not always a good judgment. It's not always an accurate judgment, because sometimes people look one way, but in reality they're nothing like that way. And so we judge basically by the cover, like we do any book. Oh, that looks good. All right, I'll eat it. That looks like an interesting book. I'll read it. So things like that. It's not always sort of say fair, but you can do a certain amount of your audience analysis. So one of the techniques of analyzing your audience that the authors of this textbook put forward is demographic analysis. Okay, demographic. That basically you're judging the observable characteristics of people. Okay, that's what you're looking for. You're scanning through the crowd and determine who are they. You look at things like age, gender, education, group membership, and cultural and ethnic background. These are the things that you look at. This is what we call demographics. When a company wants to advertise in a particular area, these are the questions they will ask. Who am I advertising to? Are these people young or old or middle-aged? Are they educated or uneducated? What is their ethnic background? Are they from this culture or that culture? Because depending on who these people are, the way I'm going to talk to them is going to change. And that's what companies do, that's what businesses do every time. And so the authors of this book kind of take this approach. If you're going to be speaking in front of people, maybe you can do a little bit of that yourself. It's not always going to be perfect, but maybe a little bit. So if you know you're speaking to a crowd of older people, for example, there are certain ways that you might have to adjust your speech, right? Maybe you weren't planning to speak to a bunch of older people, but that's who showed up. And that's what you got to deal with. So you might have to adjust on the fly a little bit. Or maybe the other way. So speaking to an audience of one age or another makes a big difference, because I'm not going to tell you now that you know this, that audiences based on age differ, vocabulary differs, how you carry yourself differs, what is important, what's not important to you differs. So how you speak to people from different ages differently. Gender, does gender play a role? For some people, very much so. The way you speak to a crowd that's largely female will be one way. The way you speak to a crowd that's largely male will be probably a different way. You appeal to different sensibilities of the crowd, essentially. If the crowd is mixed, the crowd is mixed. Is this families or not? Are these single people? You kind of think, you have to ask you those questions. Are these people educated or not? Now, that's the most difficult one to say. Like, how can you tell if a person's educated by simply looking at them? You see how that's subjective? I mean, you're asking a person to decide whether someone is educated or not by simply looking at them. Can't really do that. Not really. But there's certain instances in which you can guess. When you're speaking in a particular setting, you can pretty much assume that certain people of certain educational level might appear at this setting, and other people of other educational level might appear in this setting. So there are certain assumptions you can make. It's not always locked tight and perfect, but there are some things you can guess on. Group membership is another area of demographic that comes up. You know, and that's a tough one. That's a really tough one. Unless you know you're speaking to a bunch of people, let's say, who are gamers. Let's say you're speaking to people and you just see people's t-shirts and hats and you realize there's a whole bunch of gamers in the crowd. Can you use that to your advantage? Yes, you can, if you know a little bit of that world. Now, if you don't know anything about that world, then you're stuck. But at least you know who you're talking to, and you can maybe make some little tiny adjustments in your speech. Maybe you can throw in an illustration or example from their world that will help you connect with the audience a little better. See what I mean? If you know you're speaking to one crowd in particular, and there's a particular club that they belong to, or an organization, or church, or they're all fans of Kiss, or something like that, you know, like they all wear Kiss t-shirts, or you know, Lakers hats, or something like that. And they're like, oh, right, you know, so, I mean, I'll give you an example. Sometimes you just don't know about people. Sometimes people wear a hat because they just like the hat, and other times they actually mean something to them. So I get a lot of flack about wearing my Yankees hat. When I first moved here, and I would wear my Yankees hat, people would really give me a cold shoulder. I couldn't figure out why. It was the Yankees hat. I bought a Braves hat. Now everybody's nice to me. I'm not kidding you, it's true. It's true, it absolutely is true, it still works. I walk into my closet, here's my Yankees hat, here's my Braves hat. If I know I'm gonna be doing business with like a lot of local people, I'll put on my Braves hat and everything goes great. You know, if I'm just going out to the grocery store, maybe I'll just wear my Yankees hat. So, there's safe places I can go in my Yankees hat where people won't give me grief. Things like that. Sometimes you can tell where people belong to, what group they belong to, what is part of their world, sort of say. And if you notice that, that can help you. If you're speaking to a bunch of doctors, or you're speaking to a bunch of lawyers, or dentists, or some other professionals of some sort, you know, how does that change what you're going to say and how you're going to say it? Yes, you can adapt your speech if you figured out that's who my audience really are, or that's half of my audience. Maybe that's not all of your audience, but let's say that's like 20% of my audience are a bunch of guys who look like lawyers and accountants. You know, that's going to change how I'm going to make my speech. I'm still going to say what I'm going to say, but how I'm going to say it maybe will change a little bit. Okay? So cultural and ethnic background, this is another tricky one. How you tell where people come from. Like, some people certainly have the looks, okay? So Asians look like Asians, and blacks look like blacks, okay? And whites, well, what do they look like? You know, you can't tell if a person comes from Norway or North Carolina, right? You can't. And the truth is, some people may look Asian, but they didn't come from Asia. They were born and raised in this country, and that's actually all they know. Okay, one of these days I'll show you a really funny video about that. But it's like, you can't just judge people by the way they look. You can't say, all right, you look that way, that means this is who you are. It's another one of those tricky situations where it's not really fair. And so the authors give us statistics that 25% of all Americans identify themselves as multicultural, meaning they don't actually belong to one culture, they belong to multiple cultures simultaneously. And that's actually true of all of us, I believe so. I don't believe we belong to one culture only. I think most of us are members of multiple cultures simultaneously. Okay, let's see. So the question is this: how does knowing the demographic information about people you're speaking to change your message? It may not change your message. You may adapt your message a little bit. It may change the reception of the message. You may be able to adapt your expectations of how well your message is going to be accepted. But what's important is the speaker-audience interaction that you're going to have, the rapport that you're going to have with the crowd by knowing this is the crowd I'm speaking to. These are the people that I'm addressing. And even if you did not peg them 100% well, as long as you made a close enough assessment, you may be able to use that to your advantage when you're speaking to them. So, a lot of times you will be adapting your communication to them. There's another aspect of analyzing your audience here, and this is a little bit more, even more tricky, way beyond the ethnic way beyond trying to guess people's education, and that is psychological profiling. Now, to me, that's a tough one. How do you tell what people think or feel? How can you? To me, that's really hard. I mean, I think it really is. You have to be an excellent judge of character. You have to be one of these people with like powers almost to know what's going on in somebody else's mind or heart or soul even. Like, how do you know? You don't really know. Because, well, people, a lot of times they fake it good too. So you can't. But there are sometimes you get lucky. And sometimes you can figure out what people believe or what their attitudes are. Again, based on external criteria that you may be able to observe them. You may be able to figure out a little bit about their beliefs, about their values. And this is where the author talks about beliefs, values, and attitudes. Okay, this is an important stuff that I actually want you guys to know. So we have beliefs, values, and attitudes. Let's think about it together. Beliefs, values, attitudes. We kind of have these three areas. What are beliefs? How do you understand beliefs? Just your own assessment. Like religion, yes. Religion is a belief. Religion is a belief. Belief is sort of like what you believe to be true or false. This is true, this is false. So if I ask you, is Santa Claus real? Right? You're going to have a belief about Santa Claus, right? You're going to say, yes, he is. Or you're going to say, no, he's not. So you're going to give me your belief about Santa Claus. Or anything that I really ask you about, okay? Now, beliefs are not all the same. Some beliefs are stronger. They're of a much higher value to us. And other beliefs are of a much lower importance to us. So there are more important beliefs and there are less important beliefs in life. So if I asked you if you believe in Santa Claus, right? That would be one type of belief. And then if I asked you if you believe in God, that would be a different type of a belief. Now, for some people, that wouldn't be such a big difference. But some people would believe in one and not in another. Other people would not believe in neither. But if I ask people to put their value to their belief, which belief would you rather give up? Something like that. Let's say you believe in both of them. Which one would you rather give up? Religious people would say, oh, I'm okay with not believing in Santa Claus or something like that, but I can't give up believing in God or something like that. Or something else. It could be other things that people believe or embrace in. Something is true or something is false. There's some beliefs that you're willing to stake your life on, is what I'm trying to say, and there's some beliefs that are not as important. Like, you believe that it's not going to rain today because you watched the forecast, so you didn't bring an umbrella to school. Are you willing to stake your life on it? You know, but then there are other things in life that you probably believe that you're willing to stick a lot more importance behind it, okay? So there are different degrees of belief. Not all beliefs are the same, okay? Then there's attitudes. How is belief and attitude different? What do you think? What's the difference between beliefs and attitudes? No? Thinking? Just think. What are some of the, if somebody has an attitude, attitude is also a belief, right? Essentially.
Just a form. Just a form. It looks like someone feels like it looks easy.
Okay. What I'm trying to drive you guys towards is the idea is that attitude is an action. You see, belief is kind of in your mind or in your heart or wherever you place the belief. Or something is true or something is false, right? An attitude is an action. it's how you act on that belief. All right? Or how you feel about believing a particular truth or not believing a particular truth. It's the tendency of us responding to something positively or negatively. That's our attitude. If I asked you, you don't turn in your quiz this week, by the end of the week, you're all getting Fs, so you better turn it in. Now, if you believe I'm a tough teacher, you're all going to do it. If you believe that I'm an easygoing teacher and I'm going to let it slide anyway, you're going to wait till next week and say, I'll turn in my quiz next week. He's not going to do anything about it. So your attitude towards me telling you, do your quiz now, is going to be like, no big deal. It's all right. So your action, how you respond to my words, is going to be different based on your belief, whether you think I'm tough or I'm kind of easygoing and I'll let it slide anyway. You see what I mean? See how belief and attitude are actually interrelated? You know, again, I'm taking it back to classroom always, but there's probably other good examples out there. But, you know, the reason why we're talking about is that your audience is going to have beliefs and attitudes towards you. Some people are going to look at you and they're going to believe certain things, or they're going to listen to your topic and they're going to believe certain things. And you're either going to be on the same page with them or not. And then they're going to have attitudes towards the topic you have. If they don't agree with you automatically, they will have an attitude not to accept anything you say in your speech. They may not like you personally and have an attitude towards not accepting anything you say, or they may not like what you're talking about, the topic, and they will reject the very issue of what you are espousing to say. So beliefs and attitudes are, you know, they're very much related. So look at the chart on page 61 over there. It says we have some examples. Beliefs and attitudes. So belief, let's see. Seatbelt save lives. Attitudes. Fastening my seatbelt takes too much time. What happened here? Does this person really believe that seatbelts save lives? No. Because their attitude doesn't really show that their belief is true. If I truly believe that the seatbelt is going to save my life, I'm going to take the time to buckle up. I don't really believe it, so I don't do it. So my attitude is related to how true I find it. Yeah, it's generally true, but it's not always true. I'm willing to risk it. See what I mean? Not all beliefs are of the same value. They all hold different degrees of validity for us. Some are more true to us, and others are less true. So look at this one, next one. Vegetables contain important minerals and vitamins. Broccoli tastes good. See, now an attitude is, I eat broccoli because it tastes good. My belief is it contains minerals and vitamins. Here's my belief is actually not related to my attitude. My attitude is I taste broccoli and I like it. I don't eat it because it has vitamins. I eat it because I like it. See? Again, my belief doesn't exactly line up with my attitude. My attitude is my attitude. They're related, but not 100%. Not so easy. Here's another one. AARP represents the interests of older Americans. I love grandfather. See, absolutely unrelated. What does you loving your grandfather has to do with AARP? Absolutely nothing. This is where your belief and your attitude are absolutely not related. So we've gone to sort of, kind of, things being related to not being very much related to completely unrelated. So sometimes people may say they believe something, but their actions show something completely different. So the attitude actually verifies where the person says they believe something is true or not. Values. Values is the middle category that we talked about. Now, what in the world is values? Value is very much of a core concept in our mind. It is the way we see life. Okay? Value is deeper than a belief. Much deeper than a belief. our beliefs come from values. Let's put it that way. I would say it that way. Values at the core. So let's put it this way. If one of your values is doing things right, then when I tell you, do your quiz this week, you're going to do it this week. Not because I told you that if you go past, I'm going to fail you. You're going to do it just because you believe in doing things right. My threat message absolutely has no effect on you because you don't care, because you believe deeply your value is doing things right. Therefore, you say, I'm just going to, do what he says because that's right, and you do it. And so my threats don't really have any sway or power over you because you don't even consider them. They're not for you because that's what your value says. The value is doing things right, trying your best, doing well at school. That's your value. So out of that value forms your belief that I better do what the instructor says. And out of that belief forms your attitude and your actions. So that's what you're doing. So values, the authors say, are very basic concepts organizing one's orientation to life. These are deeply ingrained, enduring. As a result, they are resistant to change. Your attitudes can change. Your beliefs can change. Your values are the most difficult to change, and they rarely change. They do change, however. I have seen that. So they give an example here. Imagine trying to convince a friend to renounce his or her citizenship. This is pretty foundational. That's going to alter everything in your life. So that's pretty bad. No matter how hard you try, no matter how noble your cause may be, you may just not be able to do that. So values are much more central, much more core than beliefs or attitudes. So I would say that your values are at the center. They're central. Or they're core. Yeah, I can also draw another little chart. I could say it like this. These are your values. Okay? They're at the bottom of your pyramid. Okay, then comes your beliefs. And then at the end are your attitudes. Your values, from your values proceed beliefs. And then from your beliefs proceed attitudes. And not the other way around. So if somebody has a bad attitude towards something, how can I change it? What do you think? If I just say, you're doing this, don't do this anymore. How do I change their attitude? I have to change either their belief or their value. Otherwise their attitude won't change. And this is where we do our speeches to persuade. We're not speaking to an attitude. We're not speaking to a behavior. We're speaking to a deeply held conviction, a faith of some sort in something, a conviction in something, or an understanding of the world, a philosophy. So philosophy that life is sacred, for example. If you believe that life is sacred, you're not going to become a murderer because you believe that life is sacred. If you believe that life is a gift from God, you're not going to go around killing people. That's just not going to happen because it would be contrary to your belief, to your value. So values can change, however. People do change values. That also happen. And that we call that value orientation. So sometimes there are whole groups of values that can change over time. And you can speak to people's values. Okay. So there's a degree to which you can assess your audience's belonging, their demographics. Where do they fit in? How well do they fit into this group, that group? There's a degree. And it's not always so Loctite, okay? But sometimes you will encounter a hostile audience. We talked about that before. That is a problem. And there are some good suggestions in dealing with hostile audiences on page 64. So look that over at your own leisure. These are actually pretty good. These are really good. My favorite one is disarm your listeners with humor. That's the best way of dealing with a hostile audiences. Make them laugh. Make them not hostile. If they laugh at your jokes, it's very difficult for them to hate you. You know that? And if the joke is about you, it's even better. Because what you're telling them is, I am not presenting myself better than you. I can laugh at myself. You can laugh at me, and that's okay. Because we're human, we're in the same kind of boat. So humor is great. Humor is great at disarming hostile audiences. So, that's pretty much the core of the chapter that you needed to focus on. There's a few practical suggestions towards the end of the chapter here. It talks about how to use the psychological profile, which is kind of very, let's say, inconsequential. By now you get it. You know, if you know who people are, then you frame your ideas a certain way, and you're going to choose supporting ideas and supporting materials based on who you're talking to. If you're talking to a bunch of people who believe in God, you're going to use one type of reasoning. If you talk to people who don't believe in God, you use a different kind of reasoning. If you talk to a skeptical audience and you determine they're skeptics in your area, then you're going to use a certain line of reasoning. And with people who already buy into your idea, you use an entirely different type of reasoning. So you kind of analyze who you're talking to and adapt. And how you phrase your ideas also depends on who you're talking to, because you have to be able to speak to a level where people are. You have to be able to relate to whoever your audience really actually is. And so there's a couple more pieces over here in developing your speaking goals and your specific purposes. That's a little bit more focused, and I'm going to work with you on that a little bit more later on, okay? Because specific purposes, I think, require some special attention. Let's put it that way. Goals are easy. You say, I want to do this, I want to do this. Working out the specific purpose, knowing your general purpose, working out your specific purpose is really where your speech lives. So that's actually going to get addressed a little bit later in a better way. So these are good things to overview, but I wouldn't really focus so much on them in this chapter, okay? So that's the main part I really wanted you to see. So I'm hoping that you're enjoying this textbook. It's an excellent textbook. It has great examples. They're very much true to life. It has very good illustrations. It has good summaries. Use that to your advantage, because what this chapter presents to you as far as the materials laid out is done superbly well to help you retain the information and hang on to it. The key is whether you comprehend the information. Once you comprehend it, you know, the chapter is built so that it can stick in your mind. My biggest concern with you, ladies and gentlemen, is whether you comprehend it. So if there's something that is in this chapter that does not make sense, let me know so I can clear it up. Because it might just be an important point that you're missing, okay?